Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple Little Life. What I've got in my hands is a very fine Japanese hand-forged kitchen knife. I actually met the gentleman who made this blade, and this is a Masakagi Yuki Bunka. Now this is of a sanmai construction, meaning that it has two pieces of stainless steel as an outside jacket, forged to the inside high carbon steel blade. Now if I remember correctly, the steel on the inside is a white paper number 2, I believe it is. And this has been a fantastic knife. We've owned it for about 4 or 5 years and use it all the time, which requires regular sharpening. And with regular sharpening, the knife gets smaller. The knife is disappearing. I'm just losing this blade. That's a sad reality about knives. That's just how it works. The more you sharpen a knife, the smaller it gets. Now, one thing that I'm running into is that on this side of the blade, the cladding is actually going right to the edge. In theory, when I do my fine sharpening, I bring it to an apex, I am getting back to that high carbon steel core, but I would kind of feel a little bit better about this if I could bring the cladding up a little bit and kind of match this side. Another thing to note is that over the years, this has actually developed a bit of a curve, so that might be a little difficult, might give me a little headaches when I'm grinding. And to match as close as I can the existing grind that's on here, I'm going to be using a 36-inch radius platen. This is from Bill Banky. These things are fantastic. And when I put it up to here, it looks like it's like right there. So I think this is gonna work. I'm going to be starting with a fairly high grit belt on the grinder because I don't want to just go crazy on this thing. I'm gonna have to really be careful to keep it cool because I don't want to have to reheat treat it. I'll wrap the handle in some plastic. But first, before we get grinding, let me bring you a little closer and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so here's a closer look at the blade. We can see he's chiseled in his maker's mark right here. When we look at the spine of the knife, you can see the high carbon core going down the middle. And obviously our stainless jacketing right here. I really like the transition with sanmai. I think that is such a cool look. When we flip it over, we can kind of see the problems. Right here, here is just about getting there, but essentially this jacket is kind of come right to the edge from continued sharpening. Now again, I do believe that when we sharpen this, we are actually getting down into the high carbon steel core, but I would feel better about it if we could just grind this up slightly and just bring some of this cladding back up away from the high carbon edge. I'm gonna have to be careful because this edge is quite thin, so we're just gonna lightly come in here and see if we can dress this up a little bit. I really do hope that I don't destroy this knife though. That would be a shame. So the first thing I'll need to do is swap out this flat platen for the radius platen. I've got a 120 ceramic belt. I'm not sure if that's going to be too aggressive, but we're going to start there. Hopefully we don't regret it. And I'll tell you, the one unfortunate thing is that this is actually my offhand. Genuinely, when I'm grinding, I start grinding on this side so I can hold the knife with my right hand. So I'm going to have to start on my offhand, and we're just going to come in here ever so lightly. Again, I don't really want to get much of this edge ground at all. I just want to kind of bring up right behind the edge a little bit. So let's see how this goes. I'm so nervous. Whoa, okay. So far, I'm not liking that. I've got 2 different spots that I'm hitting, there and there. Oh boy. One nice thing is it's staying nice and cool because we're going so slow. No, Jeremy, what are you doing? How to ruin a perfectly good kitchen knife. I think it's sort of working. All right, so we've gotten that up a decent amount. And I'm going to actually do a little bit on this side just so I can even out the bevels. This one comes up to about here. We'll bring this one up just a little bit. All right, we're going to switch to a finer belt and just put a little cleanup on there. Now this is a little thicker touch, so it might change the radius a bit, but we'll see. This is a Trizact belt. It's doing a nice job. Again, this blade is staying quite nice and cool. That's why the old bare-handed grinding is pretty important, so you can feel. This blade doesn't even get warm yet. Essentially, we're just kind of cleaning up that surface a little bit. Yeah, that's good. So you see we have brought this stainless cladding, like there's a little dip down, there's a dip down. We have brought it all away from the edge. That's showed up pretty good there now. Now, as you use this, the food will actually stain the high carbon steel, and that's where you get that really contrasty look. Seeing as this is both clean metal, it's hard to see. And then this side, we didn't go crazy. Now you see the definition from, I think that's from this high carbon metal being kind of eaten away over time. But I really didn't want to move this one up too much. I think they're pretty close to even now from one side to the next. Again, kind of a challenge to see, but I also ended up bringing this bevel up a bit because I didn't want it to be a lot lower than this side. And part of the beauty with these Japanese knives is that they are kind of rustic. Now, this is essentially a production handmade knife. It's not like he was finessing, for several days on this one blade. I've seen how they make them. They're very efficient, but they're a high quality knife. They cut really nice, got a really nice distal taper, very usable, very wieldy, and I really enjoy these knives. And I've seen sometimes they'll actually take 3 different knives at a time and flatten them out, like stack them and hit them under a power hammer. Very fascinating. If you want to go on a deep dive on YouTube, just look up Japanese bladesmiths from the Takafu knife area. Very interesting to see, but we'll go ahead and clean this handle up a little bit, and then we'll put a good edge on here, and the only thing left to do is use it for a while and see if I can feel a difference. The other thing to consider is that, as a knife gets used, essentially your cutting edge is growing because you're sharpening it down. So every now and then reprofiling in this fashion is actually a good idea. A lot of people might think, oh, what are you doing? You're touching somebody else's handmade knife. Well, I've used this knife a long time, and so I'm actually just kind of dressing it up, kind of bringing it a little bit back more to its original profile, the original way it was designed to work. Think about it, if you ended up sharpening it to the point it was here, well, that part of the blade is much thicker, right there than right here. So as you use a knife, and you can actually take this into different shops that specialize in Japanese knives, often they'll do it on stones, but they'll actually cut in your bevels, recut your bevels and rebevel them on a stone. That's a long process, and it was actually quite quick on the grinder, and I think it worked fairly well. All right, so we've sanded the handle. We haven't sharpened this knife yet, but just to give you an idea of how thin these are ground, you can hear it doesn't cut super cleanly, but that's just thinness. Sounds more like a tear. So let's sharpen it up and see if we can get a nice quiet sound. All right, so we've got that sharpened up now. Real nice edge on there. And this is like, I think it's like 40-pound craft paper. Just a lot cleaner of a cut. You can see it even, and it just sounds different. And then old school phone book paper. Look at that. That is slick. All right, I'm pretty excited with how this turned out. I was a little nervous that radius platen wouldn't be close enough of a match, but it was actually pretty good. It was different, but it was close enough. And ultimately now these bevels match the tooling that I have. And so now when I need to touch it up again in the future, it's gonna be a little bit, you know, I won't be reprofiling it to that bevel. I'll just be kind of grinding it again. You know, it's interesting kind of to look at these knives, and while you're grinding them, you know, the thickness of the jacket from one side to the other isn't perfect. Again, I'd mentioned these things are kind of mass-produced knives, but just phenomenally wieldy knives. I've dropped it several times on the kitchen floor, hasn't broken yet. In fact, I dropped it in the grinding room when I was swapping belts. Whoa. Man, wouldn't that be a bummer way to end a video, just like dropping a knife and breaking it? But that's where the stainless steel cladding comes in, helps give some strength, some protection to that high carbon, very hard steel core. And man, you just get these things phenomenally sharp. You know, kind of sharp enough that you shouldn't even really look straight at the edge, or, you know, it just might cut your eyeballs right in half. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. I thank you for watching, and we shall see you on the next one. Cheers. And of course, I would never take an angle grinder to a nice kitchen knife.